Leonard Cohen told Bob Dylan, "You're not a real artist." What Dylan did next left Cohen speechless. Montreal, 1966. Bob Dylan sat alone in a dressing room at the Place des Arts, exhausted from another confrontational concert where half the audience had booed him for going electric. He was drinking coffee, staring at nothing, when there was a knock on the door. His road manager stuck his head in. "Bob, there's someone here who wants to meet you. Says his name is Leonard Cohen." Dylan looked up. Leonard Cohen, the Canadian poet, moving into music now. "Yeah, let him in." Leonard Cohen walked into the dressing room, and the first thing Dylan noticed was how carefully he carried himself. Cohen was tall, dressed in a dark suit, his eyes intense but uncertain. "Mr. Dylan," Cohen said, his voice deep, measured. "Thank you for seeing me. I know you must be exhausted." Dylan gestured to a chair, said nothing. Cohen sat, arranging himself carefully. "I won't take much of your time. I've been thinking about something, and I needed to say it to you directly." Dylan sipped his coffee, waited. "I've been watching your career," Cohen said. "The changes, folk to electric, protest to whatever this is now, and I have to ask." He paused, choosing words carefully. "Are you still making art, or are you just making noise?" Dylan's expression didn't change. Cohen continued, less confident now, but committed. "I spent years on Suzanne, years, every word, every image. It had to be precise. That's craft, that's discipline. But you seem to just react, change on impulse. Is that art, or is that just restlessness?" "What do you think?" Dylan asked quietly. Cohen looked startled by the question. I think real art requires commitment, depth, not just clever lyrics set to..." He stopped himself. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong." "Did it?" Dylan's voice was flat, unreadable. "What I mean is..." Cohen struggled. "When I write, I'm thinking about Lorca, Yeats, the tradition I'm working in. Every line has to earn its place. But your recent work..." "How does it feel?" repeated over and over. "That's not poetry. I don't know what that is." Dylan set down his coffee cup, looked at Cohen for a long moment. "How many people read your poems, Leonard?" Cohen blinked. What? "How many?" "A few thousand, perhaps. Literary journals, small presses." "And how many people heard that song?" Cohen was quiet. "Millions," Dylan said, not boasting, just stating fact. Then, "So which one's more real?" "That's not..." Cohen started. "Popularity doesn't equal..." "Didn't say it did." Dylan stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the Montreal night. "You came here to tell me something. So tell it." Cohen took a breath. "I think you're running. From something. Maybe from yourself. All these changes, they look like evolution, but they might just be avoidance. You're so busy becoming different things that you never have to be one thing completely." Dylan turned around. "And you spent 10 years on one song because you were being thorough, or because you were scared?" The question hung in the air. Cohen's face went pale. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Dylan's voice was quiet but sharp. 10 years is a long time to make sure you're safe before you speak." "I was making sure it was perfect?" Dylan interrupted. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Silence. Cohen's hands tightened on the armrests. "So what are you saying? That care is cowardice? That discipline is fear?" "I'm saying," Dylan said, walking back to his chair, "that you didn't come here to ask me anything. You came here to convince yourself of something. Which is that your way is the only real way." Dylan sat down, looked at Cohen directly. "That all those years of studying and preparing, they mattered more than just saying what needs to be said when it needs to be said." Cohen opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not..." Dylan waited. "You don't understand," Cohen said finally. "When you come from where I come from, literature, poetry, You're taught that words matter, that precision matters, that you have to earn the right to speak. And how do you earn it? Dylan asked. By learning, by reading the masters, by understanding the tradition you're entering. And then what? Then you can contribute. Add your voice to the conversation. Dylan was quiet for a moment. Then, and while you're learning, while you're preparing, while you're making sure you're worthy, what happens to all the things that need to be said right now? Cohen didn't answer. They don't get said, Dylan continued, because you're waiting for the right time, the right words, the right level of craft. He paused. But the moment doesn't wait, Leonard. It just passes. But if you speak too soon, if you speak without preparation, you might be wrong, Dylan finished. Yeah, might be. Probably will be. But at least you're in the conversation. At least you're risking something. Cohen looked down at his hands. I risk... What? Dylan's voice wasn't cruel, just direct. A bad review? An academic critique? You risk being wrong in a very safe, very protected way? There was a long silence. Cohen's voice when he spoke was quieter. And what do you risk? Everything, Dylan said simply. Every time. Another silence. Longer this time. Cohen finally looked up. I came here thinking, I don't know what I thought. You thought I'd defend myself, Dylan said. Explain why my way is valid. Give you something to argue against. Maybe, but I'm not going to. Why not? Dylan shrugged slightly. Because you're not asking about me. You're asking about yourself, and I can't answer that for you. Cohen sat back in his chair, something shifting in his expression. He looked tired suddenly, vulnerable. When I was younger, Cohen said slowly, I was certain about everything. Now I'm certain about nothing. And I thought maybe if I could understand what you're doing, why you keep changing, I could figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. There's no supposed to, Dylan said, but there has to be some structure, some way to know if you're on the right path. Is there? Cohen looked at him frustrated. You're not going to give me anything, are you? I already did, Dylan said. You just didn't want to hear it. Which was? That waiting for certainty is another way of not acting. Cohen was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less defensive, more genuine. How do you do it? How do you just act without knowing? I don't know if I'm acting right, Dylan said. I just know I'm acting. That doesn't answer. It's the only answer there is. Dylan's voice was gentle now. You want me to tell you there's a right way to do this? There isn't. There's just what you do and what you don't do. Everything else is noise. Cohen looked at Dylan for a long moment. I think I came here hoping you'd tell me I was right. That preparation matters. That craft matters. That all those years of being careful, they weren't wasted. They weren't, Dylan said. Cohen looked surprised. They weren't wasted, Dylan repeated. They're just your way. Not the only way. Your way. He paused. But don't confuse your need for preparation with everyone else needing it too. Cohen nodded slowly. Something in his face had changed, not broken, but cracked open slightly. They sat in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable silence, just silence. Finally, Cohen spoke. Can I ask you something else? Go ahead. Do you ever doubt? Really doubt what you're doing? Every day, Dylan said. Then how? I doubt it and do it anyway, Dylan said. That's all. There's no secret. Cohen smiled slightly, a sad, genuine smile. I was hoping for something more profound than that. Truth usually isn't profound, Dylan said. Just true. At around 3 a.m., Cohen stood up to leave. He looked different than when he'd arrived. Still formal, still careful, but less defended. Bob, he said, extending his hand. Dylan took it. I'm not sure what I learned here tonight, Cohen said, but I think I learned something. You did, Dylan said. What was it? Dylan smiled slightly. A rare expression. You'll figure it out. As Cohen reached the door, he turned back. You were right. About the fear, about the waiting, about all of it. Dylan said nothing. Just looked at him. But I don't know if I can change, Cohen admitted. I don't know if I can just act without knowing. You don't have to be me, Dylan said. You just have to stop using preparation as a reason not to start. Cohen nodded, stood there for another moment. Then, thank you. For not, he paused, looking for words. For not making this worse than it had to be. Dylan shrugged. No point. Leonard Cohen left Montreal that night different, not transformed, not fixed, just cracked open enough to let something new in. 3 years later, Cohen released his first album. The songs were still careful, still precise, but there was something new underneath, a willingness to risk, to be vulnerable, to speak before he was completely ready. In 1988, during a rare joint interview, someone asked Cohen about his relationship with Dylan. Cohen paused, choosing words carefully as always, then said, "Bob taught me something I'd been trying not to learn, that sometimes you have to speak before you're ready. That readiness is often just another word for fear." The interviewer turned to Dylan. Dylan just looked out the window, said nothing. The interviewer pressed, "Bob, what do you remember about meeting Leonard?" Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Good writer, good guy, figured some things out." That was all. Years later, after Cohen's death in 2016, Dylan said something in a statement that was, for him, unusually direct. Leonard Cohen was a brave man, not because he wasn't afraid, because he acted anyway. The story of Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan reminds us that there are many ways to make art, and none of them are wrong. They're just different. Cohen needed preparation. Dylan needed immediacy. Both were valid. Both mattered. But that night in Montreal, Cohen learned something that would shape the rest of his career, that the need to be certain before you speak is often just fear wearing the mask of discipline. And Dylan learned something too, though he'd never say it out loud, that sometimes the most generous thing you can do is refuse to give someone the argument they're looking for. Both men kept making art. Both men kept doubting. Both men kept going anyway. That's not a lesson. It's just what happened. And sometimes what happened is enough. If this story moved you, remember, you don't have to choose between preparation and action. You just have to stop using one as an excuse to avoid the other. Share this with someone who's still waiting to be ready, because they already are or they never will be. And either way, the only thing to do is start.